Hi everyone, I'm Winnie C., your host for today's webinar, How to Ensure Your Credit is Protected. The presenter today is Andy May, COO of ACMA Mortgage Services. We have a few slides for you today and we'll be talking for about 20 to 30 minutes. Then Andy will answer any questions you have. Please ask your questions by typing them in the questions block on your screen. This monthly webinar series is brought to you by ACMA Mortgage Services, LLC. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of ACMA, offering a full spectrum of mortgage products to the military community. Currently, we conduct business in Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Maryland, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Tennessee, and Virginia, and we will continue to open offices in states across the country. The ACMA Mortgage Services team consists of state-licensed loan officers. Among all of our professionals, we have decades of both military and industry experience. We are an equal housing opportunity lender, and for your record, our NMLS is 1423968. As a wholly owned subsidiary of ACMA, we operate with the same values and priorities of our parent company. ACMA stands for American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association, and is the longest-standing not-for-profit association that empowers military families with affordable financial solutions. We accomplish this by being the premier provider of financial planning, investment management, and trust services for the military not-for-profit. This presentation is educational. It is for general information only and it's not specific investment, legal, or tax advice for any of you individually. Do not rely on this presentation alone to guide your home purchase decisions. Since each individual situation is unique, the type of loan that benefits you the most will not necessarily be the same as another current or former service member. For individual advice, please contact us directly. We produce this webinar series in-house with our own professional staff as a service to our members and to help them better understand the resources that are available to them. I will now go ahead and turn it over to Andy May, who will go over the agenda.
Well, thanks very much, Winnie, and welcome to all our ACMA members here. It's an opportune time to learn about the credit hack that went on over the last couple of months. And on page 4, this is the agenda that we're going to be talking about. We'll talk a little bit about what happened, how does it affect you, how you can keep your credit files clean, and how you can make sure that you're not taken advantage of by some of the things that are going on out there. And from what I understand, some people have already been affected by it. So effectively what happened, and we'll go through some conclusions as well on how to handle your credit record management long-term as well. But if we turn to slide 5, you'll see that sometime around mid-May of this year, Equifax had an internal breach. From all the industry reports that we've read, they have not disclosed what actually was taken, but we can assume that from mid-May through July 29th, that's when hackers had access to 143 million Americans' credit files. And sometime in early September, around the 5th, Equifax announced to the world that there was a hack. And around September 11th, ACMA Mortgage came out with an article and showed everyone where you can go to see if you've been affected. And we'll go over that today in this presentation so you can see if you've been affected as well. and there's a very high probability that you have. If you have not, I'd love to hear from you. In this morning's webinar, I said the same thing, and we had one person who was not affected. That's the first person I've heard of that was not. And as I said, on page 8 of this presentation, we'll show you how you can check to see if you've been affected. So what has happened? Social Security numbers, date of birth, phone number, address, and other personal information, such as driver's license numbers or other personal information, has been divulged. It could also include your employer, which for everybody that's on this call, that could be very important to you, given our military status. So on September 5th, the public was notified that something had happened, and Equifax was the company, the credit bureau that was hacked. There are 3 credit bureaus. Here I list TransUnion, Equifax, and Fair Isaac. Fair Isaac is actually Experian. They have a relationship with Experian. So if you want to get a copy of these slides or just write those 3 down, it's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And as I said, Experian and Fair Isaac have had a long-standing relationship for about 30 years. So I use those 2 terms interchangeably, and I should not have. It should be Experian. So in 2012, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau started regulating these 3 entities along with the Federal Trade Commission. And the Federal Trade Commission has no ability to penalize the 3 credit bureaus if they have a problem like what just happened. The CFPB does, and it's my belief that at some point in time, the CFPB will step forward and do something with a fine or some sort of disciplinary action with respect to Equifax. If we turn to page 6, first thing you should do is write down annualcreditreport.com. That's the FTC service, the Federal Trade Commission service, that allows you to get a free credit report every year. You can get what's known as the tri-merge report. That's the report I would suggest you get, and that includes all 3 of the credit bureaus. Some people alternatively get a free credit report from each of the bureaus every 4 months, but since they are independent, somewhat independent, it's in your best interest to get the tri-merge report for free. Freecreditreport.com, as well as many other services, exist out there. I just put that up there so that you know that they exist, but they may be selling your data to somebody if you go through them and request your free credit report through a different entity than the FTC. And again, you're allowed 1 free credit report, tri-merged credit report per year. So what you should do is order the credit report, take a look at all of the accounts that are on there. I don't recommend that you cancel any of your accounts that show up. You may have had some on your credit report for 20 years and not used it, or 10 years and not used the credit. It will affect your credit score if you cancel credit cards and stuff like that, and it lowers your credit score. So you do not want to just start personally trying to figure out how credit reporting works. We're here at ACMA Mortgage to help you if you have any questions, obviously. And we are state licensed in every state, and you're a fiduciary. So we will work with you and help you with your credit. Credit repair companies also will help you. They typically charge you to do so. I do not recommend you give them your credit card and go on their monthly charge. It's very hard to get off the monthly charge if you do hire a credit repair company. What you should do is negotiate a fixed fee for repairing your credit if you've got low credit scores, and I consider low credit scores below 620. 620 to 680, it may behoove you to also get your credit repaired, but it really depends on what your need for your credit score is. We at ACMA Mortgage can do a credit rescore for you, and typically the credit bureaus charge $90 to get that rescored once you've adjusted your credit in terms of if you have a mistake in your credit file, we can get that quickly turned around. So give us a call if you do decide to move forward and pull your annual report and you see a problem. We're here to help you. On slide 7, there are a number of credit monitoring services. I don't typically recommend that you get a credit monitoring service. You might as well be buying the identity theft insurance. It's about the same price at $10 a month. But even better is contacting your homeowner's insurance company and asking them if you're already covered with your homeowner's insurance policy. Many people are, and sometimes it's as cheap as just $25 a year to check a box and have the homeowner's insurance agent add identity theft onto your homeowner's insurance policy. And that's the most cost-effective way to get identity theft. A second thing I highly recommend you do is contact your credit card companies and ask them to send you a text every time somebody uses your credit card. I myself had that happen to me where within a matter of minutes, somebody had charged gas in 4 different states. I contacted my credit card company and they canceled the card instantly, and I was not charged anything. So if we turn to slide 8, we can get into a little bit about what's best for you as well as what it might cost you if your identity is stolen. So a lot of people are saying, hey, I should just go ahead and freeze my credit. Well, the problem with freezing your credit is that you may get charged to unfreeze it, and I've heard as high as $250, depending on what state you live in, and as little as $0. If you live in South Carolina, they are not allowed to charge you to unfreeze your credit. There is a second way of not necessarily freezing your credit, but locking your credit. And you will hear a lot about products that are out there that will now all of a sudden help you. You may lock your credit, and that may come with a charge, but it's not as onerous as freezing your credit. So freezing your credit shouldn't be done unless you're absolutely certain that no one is going to be looking at your credit for quite some time. A lot of employers require that you keep your credit open so that they can make sure that you're financially sound. So that is not something that you should just simply sign up for and say, please freeze my credit. You should consult with each of the bureaus, the 3 bureaus we mentioned earlier. Each one of them is independent, and you would have to freeze your credit at all 3 of them, or find somebody who can freeze your credit at all 3, or lock your credit at all 3. On page 8, as I said earlier, bullet point number 2, we show you where you can go to see if your credit has been stolen. And Equifax provides that. It takes a few seconds. You type in the last 6 digits of your Social Security number, and it immediately comes back and says that your credit has been hacked. It also provides you with the opportunity to sign up with Equifax for 1 year of protection. That does not cover you if somebody goes out and gets a mortgage or jewelry or things like that. And we will go into that in a little bit more detail. But if they do steal your credit card, you have basically 48 hours to report that to your credit card company, and you're limited to $50 in losses according to the FTC. If it goes beyond 48 hours to 60 days, the FTC says that your liability is limited to $500. And then beyond 5 or 60 days, the $500 is off the table, and they don't tell you what you're really responsible for. So it's up to you. You're your own best advocate. You need to make sure your credit is clean and nobody is stealing it. As I talked about earlier, if somebody goes out and gets a mortgage, it really just depends on the bank whether or not you're going to have a problem with that. It will affect you for a long time to come if somebody gets a car or a house using your name, and it takes an awful long time, years sometimes, to get that corrected. And I can't tell you if you would have a financial liability with that. So if we turn to page 9, some of the conclusions. The credit hack will be with you for the rest of your life. If you have been hacked, you've lost your date of birth, your Social Security number. When you go to retirement to get your Social Security, you want to make sure somebody doesn't try to collect it before you do, since all your information has been out there. According to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, which I read religiously, it turns out that they think that it was either done by another government entity, or it could have actually, somebody says in the New York Times today, that it may be done by Equifax themselves, since they haven't really been forthright in telling everyone what has been lost. And that's in the business section of the New York Times today. You can read about that. So a lot of information is out there on you, 143 million Americans. We just put this on page 9 so you're aware of a free service. It's free if you were grandfathered in, or if you have a mortgage through ACMA Mortgage. You get 5 years of vault service and can maintain and update your personal files on our premier services, which is our vault management and storage services. If you do not qualify for the free version, it's $5.95 a month. And I think it's well worth it. You should be keeping Social Security cards, birth certificates, title insurance policies, notes, deeds, things like that in your vault. A lot of people will go out and buy a computer and say, I've stored it on my computer or onto an external hard drive, but those don't last forever. And I highly recommend that you use some sort of a service that stores your important documents. So the last point here I wanted to say for a second time is call your homeowner's insurance company first. The second thing to do is to take a look at page 8. And as I showed you on page 8, we do show you how to check to see if your credit has been impaired. If you did not write that down, you can always Google ACMA Mortgage and Equifax. We wrote an article on the 11th that has a link that'll take you directly into the Equifax site, and you can check to see if your credit has been impaired or compromised, I should say. And the third thing that I found really interesting today also was that according to one of the financial pundits on Wall Street, they suggested that consumers go to their bank and write a letter to the bank saying, please do not extend any credit lines to my checking account, my savings account, or my mortgage, if you have a mortgage with your bank. Because apparently some of the hack has already started to filter through, and the banks are the first ones that are getting hit, and people are showing up taking online accounts and extending them and expanding them. So overall, the conclusions here are that it's going to be harder and take longer to get your credit approved through financial institutions just because of the sensitivity to all this. You need to learn how to mitigate your risks, and we went through that today. And Google is your friend. Hop on Google, start to read about it some more, read our article, learn about what's going on, but remember this will be with you for the rest of your life, because you're not going to be able to change your Social Security number, your date of birth, your name, and everything else simultaneously. So with that, I will turn it back over to Winnie and see if there are any questions. Thank you very much for attending.
Great, thanks, Andy. We've actually collected a few questions already, but please do not hesitate to ask others by typing them into the questions block on your screen. As the COO, Andy oversees all transactions of AMS and works from our headquarters in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Okay, the first question is, you said that information on 143 million Americans was compromised. Does the data stay out there forever?
It does stay out there forever. From May until July, the entity that downloaded Equifax's data, that's a long time to have a problem. Equifax's software was an open source software, and the open source software company sent a patch out in March knowing that there was this breach ability in their software, and Equifax never installed it. So for a period of a few months, whatever entity was taking all the financial and personal data from these websites of Equifax currently has it, and no one has been able to find out who has it. And no one's really been able to find out if they've started to use it or not. However, you can go to Google, read about it, take a look at on the news, but make sure that you are diligent about this forever. I mean, this data will be out there. If you're in your mid-40s and you're going to retire in 20 years, you need to think about the Social Security Department and making sure you're in contact with them before you decide to retire, so that somebody else hasn't input all your information. With respect to your tax returns, you need to talk to your accountant and make sure that somebody's not filing your tax returns early. So it's a pretty serious breach. There's a lot of data that has been stolen, and it is out there forever. And Equifax has not come clean and told us all what was taken. And I recommend that you contact all three of the bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And I've been told that it may take several days to get through to Equifax because everybody's calling them. Great question.
Thanks, Andy. The second question is, what is Congress doing about the breach?
Well, that's a great question, too. I know the attorney generals have been talking. From what I understand, 6 of them are getting together to file suit, or at least they're proposing that they do so, and that number will probably expand. From what you can tell in the marketplace, both with respect to Experian and TransUnion stock price, I think that the stock market is signaling that Congress probably won't do anything about this, since both of their stocks are trading at near 52-week highs, and Equifax's stock is off about 20%. So if you look at the stock market, they're suggesting that Congress won't do anything about this. I think that the entity that might do something about it is the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that regulates nearly all financial institutions. But I just don't see Congress acting anytime within the next 6 months to a year on this.
Thanks, Andy. The third question is, what about the other 2 bureaus? Are there problems there as well?
Well, not to my knowledge. Nobody's said anything about that, but it behooves you to contact Experian and TransUnion and figure out whether or not you want to lock or freeze your accounts. Like I said, South Carolina prohibits you from charging for a freeze, but you really need to understand what state you're in and how much you might get charged. Spending $250 every time you unfreeze your account can get very expensive. So I don't recommend that you do freeze it unless you absolutely don't need people checking your credit. So contact all 3 of the bureaus. They operate independently, or contact a credit agency that can do that on your behalf.
Thanks, Andy. Those are great questions. If we didn't fully answer your question or you think of another questions later, please reach out to us at mortgage@acma.com, or you can email Andy directly. His contact information is on the screen. We'll go ahead and break here for now, but you can reach us whenever you need to. This weekend, you receive a follow-up email with instructions on how to access the recording of this presentation. And you can always sign up for future webinars or review past webinars at mortgage.acma.com. If you found this information useful, please share it with your family and friends. Our membership grows every year because you introduce your friends to ACMA. Thank you and have a great day.